The bowl of pasta hit the wall behind him. Not because I threw it. Because she did. Petra. My wife. At least, that's what the paperwork still says. What triggered her this time? I said, "Do you mind putting your phone away during dinner?" That's all. 8 words. She stood up slowly, like she was winding herself into some kind of show. And then she launched the food, my food, over my shoulder. Not at me, no. At the wall behind me. Theatrical. Loud. Everyone turned. Because we weren't home. We were at her friend's loft party. Dozens of people, dim lighting, glass sculptures I couldn't afford even if I sold my car. Everyone saw. And she liked that. And that's when she said it. The sentence that changed everything. The sentence that cracked something I didn't know could break. Do what I say, Emery, or pack your bags. Silence. Then laughter. Small, nervous, like people weren't sure if it was a joke or a threat or a breakdown. I just stood there with red sauce on my shoe and questions bleeding out of my brain. Petra didn't blink. She didn't laugh. She meant it. And the worst part? He was there. The guy I'd been trying to pretend didn't exist. The one from her meetings, the one she ran into at the studio, the one she said I was being crazy about. He looked right at me with that sideways smile. Half pity, half victory. I wanted to disappear. Or scream. Or both. I didn't do either. I said, okay. Just that. Then I walked out. Past the laughter. Past the people pretending not to stare. But I didn't go home. Not yet. I went somewhere else. Somewhere I could finally open the file I'd been hiding for weeks. The one from the investigator. And what I found in there. It made the pasta bowl seem like a love letter. The folder had been sitting at the bottom of my sock drawer for 3 weeks. Yellowed edges, bent cover. I kept telling myself I wouldn't open it unless I had a reason. As if the way she looked at me lately wasn't reason enough. As if the way she whispered when she answered certain calls, or how her phone never left her side, even when she showered, wasn't a red flag the size of a billboard. But that night, when she said those words, do what I say, or pack your bags, in front of her friends, with her little side project smirking from the shadows. That was my reason. That was more than enough. I drove to the Walmart parking lot. Don't ask me why. It was the only place open 24/7 that didn't feel like it judged me. I sat in my car, pulled the folder out, and opened it on my lap like I was defusing a bomb. Inside were photos. Dozens. Petra at a wine bar I'd never been to. Petra coming out of a hotel, wearing the same clothes from the night before. Petra on a bench, too close to him, fingers nearly touching, faces almost too intimate for the daylight. And the receipts. Parking stubs. Gym visits that didn't line up with her stories. A Venmo payment titled, Room Service Wineglass Winking Face, sent to him. She thought she was subtle. She was not. I should have been angry. I wanted to be angry. But all I felt was stupid. Like my brain couldn't keep up with the reality of what was happening. Like I was watching a movie where the protagonist doesn't realize the killer is right behind him, and the audience is just yelling, "Turn around, you idiot." Except the idiot was me. I texted her that night. Just one line. Let's talk in the morning. Don't be late. She replied with a thumbs up emoji. That alone told me everything. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just played through every lie I'd accepted as truth. Every late night shift she claimed to be working. Every time she called me insecure or too emotional. Every time she laughed at me for needing reassurance. I thought I was the broken one. Turns out I was just the loyal one. Morning came fast. She walked into our kitchen like nothing happened. Like she hadn't gutted me with a single sentence in front of an audience the night before. She kissed my cheek. You overreacted. I was joking, she said, sipping from her turmeric smoothie like my heart was a minor inconvenience. That's when I placed the folder on the table and watched her face freeze mid-sip. She didn't say a word. Not yet. But when she did, it changed everything. She didn't flip the folder open. She didn't ask what it was. She just stared at the manila cover like it had teeth. Her expression wasn't shock, it was calculation. Like she was trying to figure out how much I knew, not what I knew. That terrified me more than if she'd just broken down and confessed. So, I said, my voice cracking like some teenager trying to sound brave. Anything you want to say, or should I narrate the highlights? Petra didn't blink. She set her smoothie down, gently, like she didn't want to disturb the perfect aesthetic of our quartz countertop. And then she finally spoke. Okay, she said, like she was sighing after a long meeting. So I assume you hired someone. That was it. No apology. No denial. No panic. Just acceptance. Like I'd found out she used the last of the toothpaste. I nodded. Troy Costner. Private investigator. Ex-cop. Nice guy. Loves old cars. She actually smiled. Like this was just a minor inconvenience she could work around. And then she said something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. I was hoping you'd find out this way. At least now we can be honest. I didn't understand. Not yet. I thought I was in control. I thought I had the upper hand. But Petra had just flipped the game board and started playing something entirely different. Honest about what, exactly? I asked. She walked around the table like a lawyer giving closing arguments. You and I haven't been a real couple for over a year, Emery. We both know it. You just didn't want to admit it. I tried subtle. I tried creating space. But you kept clinging. Clinging. That word stabbed harder than I expected. As if loving someone desperately while they emotionally starve you is weakness. As if staying faithful while being made to feel invisible is pitiful. I gave you space, I said. I practically lived in silence while you floated around like a ghost. I did everything to make this work, Petra. She scoffed. You existed. You didn't evolve. There's a difference. I felt sick. She wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. It wasn't just that she'd cheated. It's that she'd already rewritten the entire story in her head to justify it. You lied to me. For months. She finally opened the folder, skimmed the photos like they were Yelp reviews. I didn't lie, she said. I withheld information you couldn't handle. I genuinely thought I might throw up. And then, because of course, he walked in. Yeah, him. Mr. Smug smile from the party. The one from the photos. The one whose name I hadn't wanted to say out loud until now. Morning, he said, dropping his gym bag by the front door. You told him? She nodded. He looked at me like I was the tenant of a place he'd already bought. Like I was furniture on its way out. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just a guy. He was the guy. The replacement. The next chapter. But I hadn't turned the page yet. And what they didn't know? I already had my own ending in motion. There's a specific kind of silence that happens when someone believes they've won. It's not relief. It's arrogance. That's what filled our kitchen that morning. Petra stood there like a judge delivering a verdict, and his name, by the way, was Dorian, because of course it was, just leaned against the fridge like he'd been living here for months. I didn't move. Didn't speak. I think they expected me to beg. To cry. Maybe even lash out. But I didn't do any of that. Because while they were playing out their little reveal scene, I was thinking about what I had locked in my car's glove box. You see, hiring the private investigator was step one. But step two? That came after I saw Dorian's face for the first time in those photos. I'd asked Troy to run a full background check on him. Not just social media and basic history. I wanted everything. And it turns out, Golden Boy Dorian wasn't as stainless as Petra thought. He wasn't just some trainer or gym guy with ambition. He'd been married before. Twice. Both women had filed for separation less than a year after their weddings. No charges. Just silence. Sealed agreements. Quiet exits. But here's the kicker. Both women had drained joint accounts and disappeared from the state within months of marrying him. Each time, Dorian walked away with business losses and unpaid debts. Enough to ruin most people. But not him. Because every time, a new woman picked up the pieces for him. And now, that woman was Petra. And she didn't know it. Yet. So while they stood there smirking, I simply asked, how long has this been going on? Petra hesitated, then glanced at Dorian like she needed permission to speak. That told me everything. 7 months, she said, like she was giving a weather update. Longer, technically, if you count the emotional part. Which I do, I muttered. Dorian stepped forward. Look, man, you've clearly checked out of the marriage. Petra deserves someone who. I cut him off with a laugh I didn't even realize was in me. You think I checked out? Buddy, I've been checking in solo for the last 2 years while she checked you out at the juice bar. Petra crossed her arms. This is why it doesn't work, Emery. Everything's a guilt trip with you. You always play the victim. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone I didn't recognize anymore. Someone who had convinced herself that betrayal was self-care and lying was empowerment. I'm not the victim, I said quietly. I'm just the one who finally stopped pretending. Then I turned to Dorian. You've got a type, I said. He frowned. Excuse me. I said, you've got a type. Ambitious. Trusting. Financially stable. Easily isolated. His face twitched. Petra looked confused. What are you talking about? I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Oh, don't worry. I think you're about to find out exactly who Dorian really is. Petra didn't speak right away. She looked between us like we were playing some inside joke she wasn't in on. Dorian shifted, his arms no longer folded, his eyes darting in that subtle, twitchy way people get when something in the air changes and they realize they're not the smartest person in the room anymore. I took my phone out of my pocket, slowly, deliberately, opened the file Troy had sent me, and turned the screen toward Petra. Recognize this name? I asked, tapping a section on the screen. Marissa Langdon. Ring a bell? She squinted. No. I scrolled. How about Dana Holtz? Also no. Huh. See, both of them married your boyfriend here. Both disappeared about a year later. Both walked away with their credit wrecked, and both had restraining orders filed against them by him. Dorian snapped. That's not true. But he didn't finish. Because Petra stepped back. She reached for the phone, grabbed it, started scrolling. Her hand was shaking. I didn't stop her. I had Troy talk to both women, I said calmly. Took some convincing. But when they realized someone else was about to fall into the same pit, they opened up. Voice recordings, emails, screenshots. I've got it all. Petra looked up slowly, pale now. Her confidence had drained in seconds. Why didn't you say something earlier? Oh, you mean before you invited him into my house and told me to pack my bags like I was a temp worker being replaced? That moment didn't exactly feel like a great time to be generous. Dorian tried to laugh, like it was all exaggerated. Look, man, you really think you're the first bitter husband who tried to spin stories about the new guy? I didn't answer him. I looked at Petra instead. You ever wonder why he never let you come to his place? Why he always made you pay for things? Why he pushed you to talk to that real estate friend about putting this house in your name alone? She blinked. He did that. I nodded. And I'd bet good money he's already moved on to the next one. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. That's his pattern. He gets in, makes you think he's your fresh start, then drains you, blames you, and vanishes before the ink dries. Petra looked like her entire brain had been unplugged, and I know I should have felt vindicated. I know that. But the truth? All I felt was empty. Because this wasn't justice. It wasn't triumph. This was just the slow-motion realization that the person I gave everything to didn't just betray me. She let herself get played too. Willingly. Desperately. Maybe even eagerly. Dorian stepped forward. She's lying, he said, pointing to my phone. That woman in the file? She's nuts. She stalked me. But Petra had gone quiet. And that silence? That wasn't arrogance anymore. That was fear. Petra didn't follow him when Dorian stormed out. That told me everything. For the first time in months, maybe longer, she wasn't defending him. She just stood there in our kitchen, staring at the backsplash like it might offer her some escape route back to the life she used to have before everything turned inside out. I didn't know, she said softly, barely audible. I didn't respond. I was tired of filling in her silences. Tired of making sense of the chaos she created. I knew there was baggage, she continued, still not facing me. But he made it sound like it was all his exes. That they were toxic, clingy, controlling. Funny. That's exactly how she used to describe me. You believe that? I asked. That every woman before you was just crazy? She finally turned to face me. Her eyes were red, but dry. That surprised me. She wasn't the crying type, but I thought maybe this would have cracked something in her. Maybe it did, but not enough. I didn't want to look too closely, she admitted. I didn't want it to not be real. That stung. Not just because she confessed it, but because I understood it more than I wanted to. I'd done the same thing with her. Ignored signs. Smoothed over gut feelings. Because I wanted the dream to stay intact. Even when the cracks were wide enough to swallow me whole. You put the house in your name? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She nodded slowly. And the account? I asked. The joint one you opened for vacation savings? Her lips parted, then closed. Then finally, he convinced me it'd be safer than mixing it with your stuff. Said it was about independence. Petra, I said, taking a deep breath. That account's been emptied. I checked last night. Gone. She swayed a little, like she'd been physically hit. How much? She whispered. Everything. She stumbled to the table and sat down hard. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the low hum of the fridge. Then she did something I never expected. She looked at me. Not with contempt. Not with dismissal. But like I was real again. Like maybe, just maybe, I'd been real this whole time and she'd been too far gone to see it. Emery, she said, can you help me fix this? That's when I knew she hadn't changed at all. Not really. Because it wasn't me she wanted. It was a lifeline. And unfortunately for her, I wasn't throwing one. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same place where she once planned our vacations, the same place where she laughed at my bad jokes, the same place where she quietly fell out of love without telling me. And now here she was, asking me to help fix a life she had willingly burned to the ground. Please, she whispered. I know I messed up, but we can figure it out. You and me. I'll undo everything with the house. We'll call the bank, file a report. Maybe we can recover something. Recover what exactly? The money she let someone else steal? The trust she shattered every time she lied to my face? Or maybe the years I spent believing I wasn't enough, when the truth was she'd already decided to replace me before I even had the chance to try. She reached for my hand, and for a second, just a second, I almost let her take it. But I pulled away. Petra, I said, slowly, like I was trying to explain something to someone who'd been asleep for a very long time. There's nothing to recover. Not anymore. Her face tightened. You're not seriously saying you're just done. I was done the moment you told me to do what you say or pack my bags, I said. You just didn't realize I already had a bag packed. She blinked. What are you talking about? I stood up and walked to the entryway, grabbed a folder from the cabinet, identical to the one I'd handed her earlier, but thicker. While you were planning a future with Dorian, I continued, I was seeing a lawyer 3 times a week. Her expression twisted. You're divorcing me? I didn't flinch. The papers are signed. Filed. I'm only telling you now because I wanted to see if you'd admit anything before it all became official. She stood up so fast her chair screeched. You were going to just walk away without telling me? You did, I said. Months ago. She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Just the sound of her disbelief filling the space between us. I think part of her genuinely believed I'd always be there, no matter what. That I'd stay loyal out of habit. That I'd be too broken to ever leave. I also transferred my name off the mortgage last month, I added. I figured it'd be easier to give you everything you thought you wanted. But the debt, she started, her voice cracking now. That's the beautiful part, I said. You put it all in your name, remember? Her face went pale. Enjoy the house, Petra, I said as I opened the front door. And everything that comes with it. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't look back. Because I wasn't her backup plan anymore. I was free. I didn't hear from Petra for 6 days after I walked out. Not a single call, not a text. Just silence. I figured she was either too proud to beg or too buried in the rubble of what she'd helped Dorian build. Either way, I didn't care anymore. I stayed at a short-term rental across town. Nothing fancy. A studio above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread every morning. It was the first time in years I woke up without a weight on my chest. I didn't realize how much of myself I had been holding hostage in that marriage until I finally stepped outside it. On day 7, she called. I didn't answer. The voicemail came minutes later. Her voice was quiet, brittle. She said Dorian had vanished. Took what little was left in the vacation account and ghosted. The house. Turns out he'd taken out a private loan using her credit as collateral. She was facing foreclosure and didn't know where to start. She ended with, I wish I had chosen differently. I wish I had chosen you. I deleted the message. Because here's the truth. By the time she realized what she'd lost, I had already started building something better. Not revenge. Not even justice. Peace. I signed up for a woodworking class 2 blocks from the rental. Just something to keep my hands busy, I told myself. But I ended up loving it. There was something healing in shaping something new out of something broken. Sawdust became therapy. Quiet became home. A month later, I met someone. Not in a romantic sense. Not yet. Her name was Callie. She ran the front desk at the shop, wore oversized sweaters, and talked to everyone like they mattered. I didn't fall for her. Not immediately. But I started talking again. Laughing. Feeling like someone real again. No pressure. No games. Just connection. I never told her everything about Petra. Maybe one day I will. But for now, I'm focused on becoming the version of myself I used to believe wasn't enough. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because I finally believe I am. Petra lost me. Dorian played her. But I walked away with something none of them expected. Freedom. And somewhere in the quiet rhythm of carving wood and letting the past stay where it belongs, I found what I didn't even know I was missing. Myself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a situation where someone made you feel small, forgettable, or replaceable, I hope you remember this. You are none of those things. And walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the first real thing you've done in years.